Hello. In this video, I'm going to share with you the key points that came out of the discussion on the workshop that we gave in Jalna on February 27th this year on strategies to expand the profitability and global competitiveness of seed production and R&D in India. So my name is Richard Vollebrich. I'm the president and CEO of Cravo, and I'm happy to share with you the key points that came out of our discussion. So the first thing we did, we talked about the challenges that they want to solve. And so obviously climate change is becoming a very hot topic where the weather's becoming more extreme and more often. And a true testament was that was the big rain and hailstorm that happened the night before our workshop. The next challenge, and again, these are in no particular order, tighter restrictions on chemical and disease, or higher quality standards. So in order to have the purest seed, it's forcing everyone to increase the quality of the seed, which means managing the environment. And obviously, larger seeds are better. So how do we create larger fruit in the production process? Because all the flowers are hand pollinated, how do we increase the time that flowers are viable, and how do we create strategies to manage the labor requirements, especially during the peak periods? And so that could be either staggering the flowering time by managing the climate, or by improving the climate so that the flowers stay viable for a longer period of time. And with the focus on soil-borne diseases, now growers are being forced to looking at growing in grow bags. One of the comments that came up was that the cost of production was too high. And I pushed back on this quite heavily because nobody can really control their costs. Labor, chemicals, fertilizer, all those costs are pretty common to all growers in India or in any other parts of the world. The problem is really that the yields are too low sometimes to be highly profitable. And so it's easier to focus on improving yields because yields will drive revenue higher. And you'll get a much bigger positive impact on your financials if you can increase your revenue rather than focusing just on the cost of production. For those of you in senior leadership positions, the question is, what are the other possible challenges 5 years from now that you should be considering when you look at how seeds are being produced? So there's really only 3 primary options for increasing profitability: increasing the number of plants per acre or hectare, increasing the yields per plant or quality of the seeds, trying to produce more difficult to grow crops that you can charge more, or have multiple planting seasons in the year. But we know that extreme weather and seasonal changes in the weather from winter, summer, monsoon is the number one constraint to exploiting any of these options. And so when growers are faced with sudden losses from extreme weather, they want to look at how to protect. So whether it's hail, rain, dew, frost, or excessive heat, it causes sudden losses in crops and profits. And so then all of a sudden the growers start looking at how can we protect against this loss? Now in the Jalna region, there's extensive use of net cages, and they provide a nice low-cost way of protecting from insects, creating a buffered environment. And the fact that they're easy to relocate helps reduce the risk of soil-borne disease. However, the challenges are the net cages allow rain and dew to get trapped inside, causing wet leaves and saturated soils. The high humidity inside causes foliar disease and low transpiration. The fact that the insect net does allow air to pass means that the heat can escape from the soil in the winter, and the insect net blocks the direct sun, resulting in soil temperatures getting colder in the winter, which is going to slow down the rate of growth. In the net cage, there is no real ability to regulate plant temperature or transpiration, so there's really no ability to influence how the plant is developing. And if hot weather comes, or when it comes, that can cause fruit to ripen quickly during the hot conditions, which can lead to smaller fruit sizes and all of a sudden smaller seeds. Now, to try to solve the problem of the rain, some growers have opted to switch to tunnels or polyhouses because it does provide rain protection and insect protection. However, the polyhouse becomes hotter and more humid inside. You cannot regulate plant temperature or transpiration, and there's an increased risk of foliar disease, pollination problems, and nutritional deficiencies caused by these climates inside. And the lack of cooling capacity limits the useful season of these types of structures. When you have a more hot, humid environment, the plants tend to develop more vegetatively, especially when the hot temperatures arise. And again, this can result in smaller fruit sizes when the fruit ripens quickly during the heat. So we did an interesting exercise with the attendees of the workshop to let's document really what kind of climate we have in the Jalna region. So if we look at cold temperatures below 3 degrees, there's really no days where you have cold temperatures. If we look at cool temperatures, 3 to 15 at night, there's only 15 days for maybe 7 hours a day. So there's only 100 hours of cold temperatures. And in the daytime, you have less days of cold temperatures because it's sunny. So the idea that you need a greenhouse to make it warmer, it's rarely cold. So if we look at the 15 to 30 degree days, every day of the year, you have temperatures of 15 to 30 degrees. It might be for 15 hours during the winter, or it might be 15 hours during the summer, or it could be for 5 hours one day, 10 hours the next day, or 15 the next day. But the critical part is that every day of the year, you have temperatures for some hours of the day in the optimal range. Sorry. And so I asked the attendees, I said, do you think that any greenhouse or polyhouse or tunnel is creating a better condition than outside when you have 15 to 30 degree temperatures? And the common answer was no, because the polyhouse is the roof coverings blocking light, trapping humidity, blocking wind, reducing transpiration. And so when people buy polyhouses or hot houses, they're really buying them for climates where you're fighting cold temperatures. And if you look here, really only 2% of the total hours in the year do you have cold temperatures, and around 60% of the time, you have ideal temperatures. And the summer conditions of 30 to 40 Celsius might happen for 40 days a year, might be for 15 hours a day, 10 hours a day, doesn't matter. But you have 90 days where you have really extreme heat. And you'll notice it doesn't add up to 80 because we couldn't get total agreement on the hours per day, etc. But the key point here, in the Jalna region, around 60% of the total hours, you have optimal conditions. For around 15 to 20% of the time, you have too hot, and you rarely have too cold. So when you're trying to grow in a structure that's actually making it hotter, you're actually making this condition worse, and you're not exploiting the optimal conditions that you have. And so it's a really good way of trying to think through what climate problems you need to solve. And when we moved into the rain, you have 40 days potentially of rain, but these are short duration storms, so only maybe 80 hours. But on the dew side, you could have dew for 30 days, and it happens more in the early morning time. And so if you're trying to manage the moisture is a rare event. It's not happening all the time. It can have catastrophic events or consequences, but it's not a frequent occurrence. And so when you look at net cages have worked well in Jalna because this temperature range here of 15 to 30 is happening a lot. But the rain and the dew is causing a lot of the problems inside the hail net structures. And with the poly houses, they're really only working well during the cold temperatures or when you have this rain or dew. And they're not allowing you to exploit this temperature range here, which is occurring most of the time. So when we start talking about crop protection, it focuses on trying not to lose money due to adverse weather events. And so net houses, net cages, shade houses, poly houses, tunnels, when you start to think of crop protection, you're trying to think about how do I prevent myself from losing money during adverse weather events? Whereas climate optimization focuses on how to win more profits and then protect those higher profits. So I'm just going to show you an example of climate optimization. And this is a trial we did in Mexico back in 2008, where we took the Reiter 2180 Roma tomato seeds from the same seed lot. And on the same research center, we planted them in the open field under a traditional net house and under a retractable cooling roof. And we transplanted January the 20th. And to give you an idea, Culiacan, Mexico is at latitude 24, which is about the same as Indore, India. And this is fairly close to the ocean, so it's a low elevation. And so think of what your crops look like in this area if you were growing outside on April 26th, and they would look something like this. And so this is what the crops look like under the stationary insect net and under the retractable cooling roof. And when we put the three plants side by side, we took one plant from each of the growing environments, you can see that even though these plants have 100% the same genetics, and they had the same water source, so same water quality, they were all grown in soil. And on the far right, you can see that the plant outside was very compact, not a lot of canopy development and small fruits. Whereas the plant under the insect net grew more vegetatively. You can see there's a lot of leaves and smaller fruit and less fruit. And under the retractable cooling roof, we had larger fruit, earlier ripening, and a better balance between leaves and fruit. And going back to 2008, we did not have the level of understanding of how a retractable roof will influence the climate and how the plants respond to that changing climate. And so I challenged the group at the workshop to say, tell me why these plants develop so differently, because they're the same genetics, but why are they so different? And so I would get answers like, well, the plants outside had more sun, or the plants under the insect net had higher humidity, or there was more wind outside. And so everyone was describing the climate differences between an open field, a net house, and the crop. But if you're going to try to explain why do these plants develop so differently, we would now explain it like this. The tomato in the open field had direct sunlight, had full wind exposure, had low humidity, which caused a high transpiration rate. And that high transpiration rate caused a high level of water stress. And the plant responded to that high level of water stress by growing a very compact structure with small leaves and big roots, because this plant was already losing too much water. So it was doing everything it could to try to stay alive. When I put insect net over top of that plant, I now permanently reduce the direct sunlight, I block the wind, and I trap the relative humidity from the plants transpiring. And so what that did was this plant transpired significantly less than this plant, and it caused a lower level of water stress. And so what we got now was we got vegetative growth. And so the plant was growing. There was photosynthesis because it had light, but the plant was putting more of its energy into leaves and not into the fruit. And the plant here under the retractable cooling roof, it was outside at 8 o'clock in the morning. So it had full sun, it had the wind, it had low humidity, which means it was transpiring normal amounts of water. And so the relationship between light and transpiration was natural. But we then closed the cooling roof when the sunlight intensity was too great, the plant temperature was getting too high, and the transpiration was getting too high. So by closing the cooling roof, we now put the plant back into a protected environment. What did that do? Well, it diffused the incoming sunlight, it blocked the wind, it trapped the humidity being transpired by the plant, which then lowered the transpiration rate. And by lowering the transpiration rate, the plant had lower levels of water stress. And so really what's happening is the change in this plant development was we had excessive transpiration and excessive water stress. We had insufficient transpiration and insufficient water stress, giving vegetative growth. And the retractable roof had optimal transpiration rates in the morning because the roof was retracted, optimal transpiration midday because the cooling roof was closed, and that created an optimal level of water stress for the plant to direct its energy into the fruit instead of into the leaves. So I challenge the the audience, sorry. I challenge the audience, what's more important, air temperature or plant temperature? And everyone said, well, plant temperature is more important. I said, okay, what are you measuring? Well, everyone measures air temperature. So plant temperature is more important, but we measure air temperature. And then I said, okay, what's more important, relative humidity or transpiration? And they go, well, I guess transpiration is more important. I said, and what do you measure? Well, we measure relative humidity. Okay, so what's happening is you're measuring the environment, but you just told me the plant is more important. So the problem in growing right now is growers focus on measuring and managing the environment, not the plant. And so plant temperature is more important than air temperature, and transpiration is more important than relative humidity. And that's demonstrated by this change in plant structure. So it is impossible to significantly increase or decrease plant temperatures or transpiration rates in structures with stationary roofs. So anytime the roof covering is in a stationary position, you cannot take it away to either increase light or plant temperatures or transpiration. And so you're always dealing in a low transpiration environment, a low water stress environment. And the plant temperatures may be optimal at certain times because the roof covering is there, but the plant temperatures may be too cool or the soil may be too cool. So I'm going to show you a series of videos that really help demonstrate how powerful it is to be able to change the amount or the quantity of sunlight or the quality of sunlight on temperatures and plant development. So this first video was taken in Culiacan, Mexico, at one of our demo sites. And you're going to see how the soil temperature changes between a white cooling roof, direct sun, and under traditional insect net.
It is February the 20th, and we're in Culiacan, Mexico, and we are in a retractable flat roof house. And what we're going to do is check the impact of the insect net on the sidewalls on the soil temperature and compare that to the soil temperature under the retractable roof and in direct sunlight. So it is now 12:30 in the afternoon, and when we look at the soil temperature here under the insect net, we can see that it's 56 or 57 degrees under the insect net. When we go under the direct sunlight here, we can see that the soil temperature is now hitting 60, 61 degrees. And now we're going to go under the retractable white plastic roof, and we can see that the soil temperature is 41 degrees. So when you look at the difference between insect net, when we were reaching temperatures of 57, the soil temperature was very similar under the insect net in comparison to the direct sunlight.
So keep in mind that this was February. I'm now going to show you a video of one of the R&D centers we built in Mexico, where we were trying to learn about the differences in plant development underneath retractable cooling roofs, where we also had stationary insect net underneath, so that we basically had a net house environment to create a screened environment, and then we had a retractable cooling roof over top to help manage and moderate the climate underneath.
Hi, my name is Richard Vollerbreck, and I'm the president of Cravo, and I'd like to welcome you to the Cravo Demonstration and Education Greenhouse, which was recently constructed in Culiacan, Mexico. This greenhouse is located at latitude 24 north, several kilometers from the Pacific Ocean. This demonstration and education greenhouse incorporates the most advanced and flexible retractable roof greenhouse designs and computer control strategies for mild and hot climates. This greenhouse is the low-cost X-frame model, which has a gutter system to collect rainwater and utilizes a white retractable roof covering, which helps to reduce and diffuse the intense sun during the hot afternoon conditions. To allow growers the opportunity to see plants grown in both a screened and non-screened environment, half of the greenhouse has stationary insect net installed below the retractable roof. This year, we have partnered with 11 of the leading vegetable seed companies to demonstrate how their best varieties respond when produced using the retractable roof production system practices and protocols, both in a screened and unscreened environment. We are producing tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, eggplant, strawberries, blueberries, and papaya. Growers who visit this greenhouse will be able to see firsthand the plant development, as well as learn the protocols that have been developed for how to use the retractable roof to maximize yields and help prevent or manage disease and insect pressure. The greenhouse is controlled automatically by a computer with a weather station above the greenhouse and sensors inside monitoring and recording surface temperature, air temperature, relative humidity, soil wetness, and soil temperature. We hope you have an opportunity to visit this demonstration and education greenhouse, which will be in full production until middle of June 2015.
So I'm now going to show you some of the crops that were grown here during the hotter conditions. And so this is April 24th.
It is April the 24th, and we are in the Retractable demonstration greenhouse in Culiacan, Mexico. And we are in the side of the house that has the stationary insect net. So the pepper crops that you are looking at were transplanted October the 11th, 2014. The daytime temperatures here are reaching 36 degrees. And we can see that the plants are still very vigorous and healthy, with new flowers continuing to develop. So a harvest was done this morning, and we can see the pepper crops that were harvested.
So I'm now going to show you some of the climates underneath the retractable roof with and without insect net.
It is 1:26 in the afternoon on June the 2nd, and we are in the Retractable demonstration greenhouse in Culiacan. We can see that the outdoor temperature is approaching 40 degrees. It's 39.5 right now. Inside air temperature is 37, so we are 2 degrees cooler than outside, and we have 63% relative humidity. So considering that it is June the 2nd, in Culiacan, there is no peppers, no cucumbers, no tomatoes being harvested anymore in the conventional greenhouses and net houses. And here we are in the retractable roof with insect net. And the first thing we can see is there's sufficient air movement going on underneath the roof, that the plants are actually moving. So that means we're getting a good air exchange through the net, and we should not have any CO2 deficiencies. So looking at the cucumbers here, we can see that there is no signs of powdery mildew. There were some problems with leaf miner, but we can see on the new leaves that this has now been brought under control.
So one of the key things we've learned here is that, sorry, that it might be beneficial to add either low pressure mist or high pressure fog. That video that you just saw of June the 2nd, there was no evaporative cooling misting or fog in there. But when you have those hot, dry conditions, being able to boost the humidity is critical to managing the transpiration rate. So when you look at options for protection, it's either an open field, a net cage over the open field, or a net cage in grow bags, or a poly house. And when you get into climate optimization and weather protection, there's some different options of retractable roofs. And I'm going to show you some different videos now to make you understand some of the options. We have developed over 75 different retractable solutions over the years. And later on, I will be identifying the top 6 that I think are relevant for India. So which model is suitable depends on what crop you're growing. Is insect protection required? Is rain protection required? And is the amount of how much capital is available in order to invest? So the first video I'm going to show you is for what we call the flat roof, and it can protect crops from cold, heat, wind, insects, the impact of a hard rain. And because you can open the roof, you'll be able to manage the water inside because you can now lose the water by moving the roof.
Is excessive summer heat, low humidity, or a shortage of water destroying your yields, quality, and profits? Cravo's retractable flat roof houses are the perfect solution for dry locations or for rain-tolerant crops, improving your profitability by optimizing the climate throughout the year. The flat roof house is a lower-cost solution to help protect you from a financial loss by automatically closing hectares of roofs in minutes, shielding crops from excessive temperatures, nighttime cold, strong winds, hail, dew, or the impact of a hard rain. But just as importantly, the flat roof house gives you better control over the growing environment, so you can optimize the climate and increase your revenues by advancing or delaying the harvest to hit peak market prices, optimizing plant temperatures and transpiration to increase fruit size, firmness, and bricks, improving pollination by regulating temperature and humidity levels, increasing overall plant health, and helping reduce disease and insect pressure. With over 40 years of innovation and proven performance behind its development, the Cravo Flat Roof House also delivers operational efficiencies that result in big savings, especially for large installations. Houses can range in size from 1 to 100 hectares, or 2 to 250 acres, allowing you to maintain uniform daytime temperature and humidity levels, especially with the use of high-pressure fog or mist cooling. Use machines to work the soil or to spray crops more efficiently. Reduce the number of spray applications needed by 50% or more due to the improved climate and plant health. Provide an open and comfortable environment to improve worker efficiency and provide ease of supervision, and benefit from significant cost savings compared to other types of houses. Covering 45 hectares or 115 acres, this flat roof house can be closed within 6 minutes, powered by 54 motors all working in unison to block out damaging weather. With the roof and walls closed, a flat roof house can withstand 110 km/h winds. And in the over 30 years since it's been introduced, not a single flat roof house or covering has been lost due to high winds. Higher wind loads are also available, and in the event of severe winds, coverings can be retracted to help protect the structure and roof covering from damage. All roof coverings will absorb the impact of a hard rain and are water porous to prevent water accumulation on the roof. These coverings typically last 8 to 12 years, and the flexible roofs have proven to be very resistant to large hailstones. There are 4 different types of retractable coverings to choose from, depending on your needs. White cooling roofs for dry climates. White open cooling roofs for humid climates. Insect net, as well as blackout roofs. For vine crops like tomatoes, peppers, and cucumbers where protection from insects is needed, a stationary or retractable layer of insect net can be installed below the retractable cooling roof. And for crops like berries, a stationary layer of bird net can be installed below the retractable cooling roof. Operating the flat roof house is both crop-friendly and eco-friendly, drastically reducing water and electricity usage. Powered by Cravo's efficient drive system, one motor uses only 3 to 5 kilowatts of electricity per day per hectare and can close up to 9,000 square meters or 2 acres of roof, requiring very little power, even for large installations. This retractable cooling roof over avocados in one of Cravo's Australian installations resulted in an increase in yield by 80%, while using 70% less water than the open field orchard. Even in punishing heat, the cooling roofs are very effective at reducing plant temperatures and transpiration rates, increasing the yield of crops while at the same time reducing the amount of water used for irrigation. Flat roof houses accommodate the installation of high-pressure fog systems or low-pressure mist systems, which could be used to replace pad and fan cooling systems, reducing water and electricity usage by over 95%. So, don't let extreme weather or suboptimal weather conditions destroy your profitability. Take back control with a retractable flat roof house by Cravo.
So basically, the flat roof house is ideal for crops that can get wet, but you can help manage the rain by retracting the covering to lose the water off the leaves or out of the soil. And for crops that need protection from the rain, this is a new low-cost auto-dry rain shelter system.
Are your crops under constant threat from extreme weather? Now there's a better way to take back control of your harvest and your profits with Cravo's new low-cost retractable rain shelter system, Auto Dry. Auto Dry can respond automatically to fast-changing weather, covering field or orchard crops in minutes, shielding them from damaging rain, hail, cold, heat, and wind. By merging the power of a protective cover, together with all the benefits of the natural outdoor environment, Cravo's industry-leading design gives you a powerful tool to boost the market value of your crops with less labor and less chemicals. Auto Dry's enhanced heat retention capabilities make it possible to optimize temperature and humidity, so you can advance or delay your harvest, increase your yield and quality, and hit those premium price windows more often and more sustainably. The Auto Dry system is a cost-effective choice for protecting large areas, with one motor powering almost 1 hectare or 2 acres of roofs. A 10-hectare or 25-acre installation requires only 16 kilowatts of power to close the entire roof in only 4 to 6 minutes, making it possible to power remote fields or orchards using only generators or solar panels. The Auto Dry system is easy to install over new fields or existing orchards, with posts being tilted up onto screw-in augers. The results of using Auto Dry? Larger, firmer, sweeter fruit, with less blemishes and less chemical residues, right when buyers are ready to pay the highest prices. So, if you're ready to take back control of your harvest, your profits, and your future, make Cravo's Auto Dry system your partner in crop protection and climate optimization.
So I'm now going to go through what I think are the top models of retractable roofs for India, with a specific focus right now on the seed production side. So because you want to have a screened environment, if you have a retractable flat roof house, but the roof covering is insect net, then you can leave the roof closed all the time to create a totally screened environment. But you can retract the net after a rain if it's critical to dry off the plants or dry out the soil. And when the harvest is finished, You can automatically retract the net if you want to solarize the soil, because now you can get the direct sunlight onto the soil to heat it up to sterilize. So this is a lower cost solution that doesn't keep the rain out. It helps you lose the rain, lose the water, lose the dew. If you have crops where temperature control is required, but not insect protection, then using a flat roof house with a cooling roof instead of a greenhouse roof covering, you can close the roof to protect from the cold, the dew, the rain, or strong winds by closing the roof 100%. When you have optimal conditions outside, retract the roof 100% so that you've got the full natural outdoors coming into your growing area. And when you have excessive sunlight and heat, close the roof 80 to 93% to reduce plant temperatures and transpiration. And that will help with slowing down fruit ripening if that is important. If you want to combine the climate optimization with insect protection, then you have a combination of a retractable cooling roof to manage the climate and then stationary insect net underneath. So you're really combining the technologies of a net house with a retractable roof. Auto dry will be ideal for crops that you want to protect against rain, hail, frost, strong winds. And you can also close the roof if you have too much sun during hot conditions. This covering is really more suitable for what we call occasional protection seasonally. So this house is a lower cost house with a lower cost roof covering. So it's not designed to be closed 365 days a year, like you would with a long cycle tomato crop, for example. So this is really more of that seasonal protection. And the key thing to understand is that the water will drain to the valley and then fall on the ground in a straight line. So there is no gutter system here to collect the water. But if you're growing hydroponically in bags and then you put a small drainage channel in the ground to direct the water away, then you get the combination of a low cost rain shelter with rain protection and the automation of a retractable roof. One of the discussions that happened after the conference was to combine a net house with auto dry, and you could do that by installing stationary insect net up here above the roof and then down on the sidewalls. So you're basically creating a screened environment, and then you put auto dry inside in order to manage the climate inside. And then finally, if you're doing high value R&D or breeding in that, and you really want a screened environment with full control over the climate, then a peaked roof house, either A-frame, rafter, or X-frame, with the gutter systems to collect the water, will give you basically a full greenhouse environment, a net house environment, and climate optimization, because you can open and close the cooling roof. Now, one of the key things is that you'll notice that here, the retractable roof is above the insect net. And for those of you that have experience in net cages, you'll fully appreciate that when the sun's beating down on this insect net, it's really causing the heat to build up inside. And so by putting the retractable roof above the insect net, we're actually using the roof to block the sun and the heat before it reaches the insect net. So that means we can help cool the environment inside by stopping the sun before you get to it. Now, there's a really important design concept here that you need to understand. And that is, when you're using the roof to block the heat, you have to make sure that you still have decent ventilation. So when we have a retractable roof like this and we close the roof 80, 85, 95% to block the sun, you can see how this roof is shading the insect net here. And so what that's doing is it's stopping the heat from coming in. And you'll notice with the blue and the red arrows, because the opening is extending from the gutter up to the peak, we're not trapping any heat in the peak here when we close the roof 90%. So cold air is falling down through the opening near the gutter, hot air is rising up to the peak. And the challenge is when certain growers were trying to use a roll-up type covering on a greenhouse, that works great if you close at 100% for rain protection. But the moment you want climate optimization, where you're trying to regulate sunlight, air temperature, plant temperature, humidity, and transpiration, the moment you close this roof 90% to block the direct sun, you've now just created a traditional polyhouse environment. And so now it's going to be hotter inside because all that heat's getting trapped in the attic. So if you're really interested in the cooling capabilities so that you can slow down the ripening and increase the fruit size, this concept will not work very well because you're going to build up the air temperatures inside. So you really need to have this opening extending from the gutter up to the peak in order to get a high rate of air exchange, so that you can both manage the light, manage the heat, and create that cooling effect. If you found the discussion on transpiration, water stress, and plant temperatures interesting and a nice little refresher, and you'd like to get more detailed information, if you go onto the Cravo website, cravo.com, go under Solution for Crops, Overview of Production Systems, you will see there's 6 videos that take a total of 1 hour to watch, and it's a good refresher on the impact of the climate on plant temperatures, transpiration, and water stress. And if you'd like to get more information just on some of the crop responses, you can go on here and see some of the videos from the demonstration house or other facilities. So I'd like to thank you again for taking the time to learn about how you can use climate optimization and extreme weather protection to improve the profitability of your seed production operation. If you'd like to get more detailed information, please contact Brajendra Kumar or send an email to sales@cravo.com.